Who is Frederick Douglass? He is a man of principle, a man, a self-starter, a person who essentially robbed the slave owners of their ownership of him to become a whole man, one of the interesting and dynamic men of the 19th century, and his efforts should be speaking to us today. He was a man of principle and great strength.
How did he do that? How did he become who he was?
Well, I think Frederick Douglass became that kind of person, a leader, because his grandmother had the obligation of raising him, recalling that his birth mother, after weaning him, had to go back to work in the field. She was a slave. Grandmother was also, but she was too old to work in the field, so she raised the younger children until it was time for them to go do the work of a slave. And Douglass had this opportunity to be right up under Grandma Betsy Bailey, and she taught him how to function in that sort of wild, very remote community, how to fish and how to distinguish between the different animals and plants and so forth. And his mother, his birth mother, who saw him only a few times, left an impression on him nonetheless when she used to sing to him before she would have to return to the plantation. And he called her a singer who would leave an impression on him because she called him her little Valentine. And so he was smart enough to take those cues coming from people who loved him and store that up, so that by the time he was able to, by the time he was taken to Baltimore to be the slave of the brother-in-law who really owned him, he was ready, and therefore his new owner's wife made the mistake, she didn't know any better, of welcoming him into the lesson she was giving her little son of the same age, about 5 years of age. And although Mr. Auld, the slave owner, found out about it and upbraided his wife, he remembered what Mr. Auld said. You teach that so-and-so to read, and there'll be no holding him. The first thing you know, he'll be running away with himself. And Frederick, little boy at that time, determined that's what he was going to do, run away with himself. So he's, you might say, a self-made man, although there is no such thing. But he was able to take the cues given to him by people who loved him, and even by people who detested him, who regarded him as chattel property. And he was able to put this together and keep on stepping, as we used to say. He was about the business of being a whole human being, and nothing was going to stop him. So a determined man who essentially taught himself to read and write and continued to improve those skills probably until the day he got too old to handle a pen. But he was a self-made, there I go again. He was a man who was determined to be better than what the slave owners said that people of color were.